He responded to the offer? What? What the hell is Cromwell do giving a lecture tour when he's losing $60 million a quarter? Guess he's giving lectures on how to lose money. Jesus Christ, if this guy owned a funeral parlor, no one would die. This turkey is totally brain dead.
All right, Gordon.
Okay, all right, Christmas is over, and business is business. You keep on buying. Dilute the son of a bitch.
Everybody has it in them to be a villain, but Gordon Gekko is a villain that has a lot of appealing things about him, and I think when people are presented with a villain who is attractive in some ways, that's what really resonates and really puts you in a sort of a moral quandary in the way that you relate to this character, because in some ways, wow, it would be nice to be him. He's such a confident character. He doesn't seem to have a moment of doubt throughout the whole movie, and yet it comes at a price. He's sort of sold his soul in order to have all of that.
If any part I play, it's the one that people come up to me a lot. They like a lot of stuff, but they like Gordon. They get a kick out of him, which was always the biggest surprise to us because he was such a bad guy.
I think he appeals to the nastiness of human nature. I think that people like bad guys, they like lizards, they like reptilian behavior. Where would movies be without the stock villains? And I can't say he was a stock because he wasn't a mustache twirler, but he definitely was cocky and full of himself.
Well, I think in some ways Gordon Gekko is too complicated a character to just call a villain. He's kind of like Satan in Paradise Lost or something like that. He's really the soul of the film. I think what people love about him, it's that he has the glow of money. I mean, from the second Michael Douglas shows up in that movie, you just almost want to touch him. You feel like he embodies that money culture, that desire to just get richer and richer and richer. That's what makes the character so fascinating. He really is the spirit of money, and we're all attracted to that.
I thought that you were gonna turn Blue Star around, not upside down. You fucking used me.
Well, you're walking around blind without a cane, pal. The fool and his money are lucky enough to get together in the first place.
But why do you need to wreck this company?
Because it's wreckable, all right?
They gave him some great dialogue, some memorable lines, and it became sort of a cult hero within the banking community and carried on in a life much, much longer than I ever anticipated.
A lot of young people in the late 80s when seeing the movie, maybe for some of the right reasons, but then for some of the wrong reasons, were incredibly inspired to kind of go down this path and say, I really want to work on Wall Street.
When we first started to scout locations, and we went to trading facility after trading facility, and the movie poster was up, and everybody, all the CEOs' offices and people, the minute Oliver walked onto the floor, people just went crazy. And, you know, everybody was like, oh, yo, Oliver, green is good.
I met a lot of those young people who went to the street, and they told me years later that they had been in other types of schools like law or studying medicine, some of them, and they had dropped out to go onto the street because they were moved by the film. They thought this was a lifestyle they wanted to enjoy. But you know what? A lot of those people were pretty good people. They ended up good. It wasn't like they all became greedy, miserable lawbreakers. Most people on Wall Street, I find, were pretty solid.
People went out, watched that movie, and decided, hey, I'm gonna go be Gordon Gekko, instead of seeing it for what it was, which was he was supposed to be villainized. But he was held up in the same way as Scarface, you know? These villains become heroes, and they become the bedrock for the reason people get into this industry.
There's a kind of willful ignorance and delusion and frat house idiocy in that view, because, of course, Gordon Gekko is a criminal, and Wall Street, of course, is a cautionary tale. It's saying, don't do this, and it's saying, don't do it for a reason, because it's a bunch of bull. It's not real. And what Gordon Gekko represents, this money fever and this belief that you can just get richer and richer and do whatever it takes to make that happen, that's not real either. So he's really the wrong guy to idolize.
Some people see their entire identity in how much money they can make through hook or by crook. And for him, it's a game. And Gordon gets off on the game.
Are you telling me that you're not the only one in this relationship keeping a secret?
Hold on a second. What money, Gordon?
Switzerland.
So much of American culture, in terms of people who're running it now and the disaster we've had in the economy, these are the children of Gordon Gekko. I mean, American culture is run by the children of Gordon Gekko. It's not being run by the children of Bud Fox, unfortunately.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed
for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit.
The speech at the time really struck people because it was saying something that was in the air, but that really hadn't been articulated, because even at that point, with all the permissions that sort of the Reagan mentality had given people, people were not that out front about that. I mean, they may be showing their wealth by going to fancy restaurants and riding in limousines and wearing expensive suits, but they weren't saying greed is good. So when that came out, it said a lot about the underlying values that had been progressively manifested throughout this decade.
The first thing that hooks you about the greed is good speech is that even though that phrase sounds kind of outrageous, you listen to the speech and you go, well, that's true. It seems true. And in a way, it is. He's talking about this voracious spirit of capitalism and how society needs that. That's what America was built on. At the same time, there's an implicit endorsement there of voodoo economics. He's saying that the wealth will spread around, and so he's telling a lie at the same time that he's telling a really fascinating truth.
One watch, one gold money clip with no money in it, and one mobile phone.
In the second movie, he's a reduced figure, but he's a fascinating character because he's learned a lesson.
He's had a lot of time to think since he's been in jail.
He comes out of prison and there's no one there to greet him. He's a broken man. You know, he's still, there's nothing pathetic about him. He's still Gekko, but he's definitely, you know, he has to have been affected by what he's been through.
There are worse crimes than what he committed, and of course a lot of people have committed those sort of crimes of just letting the obsession with money get out of whack and rule everything else.
Great. Congratulations. Great to see you. Doing great work down there.
Thank you. Thanks
Gordon,
so much.
Gordon Gekko.
Nice to see you. Thanks so much.
The establishment of the bankers looked down on him kind of as a forgotten figure from the past. He's written a book called Is Greed Good, which is sort of making fun of himself. And he's attacking the system as it now exists as having become out of control. So he's become the moralizer, pointing the finger at what he did as the punished one. He's sort of saying this is what's wrong with America.
In the middle of all this, he's trying to create a family. You know, he's juggling the greed and his personal wealth versus his time on this earth. And what is he going to spend the rest of his life doing?
You know, I would think when you're stripped bare and you have nothing left, that family is crucial to him.
You know, Western culture is built on the idea that anybody can be redeemed, that any sinner, no matter how low they've fallen, can be brought up again. I think it's not impossible to imagine Gordon Gekko having a kind of redemption.
You're all I got left, honey. Nothing else matters. I cannot make it right again, but I can make things better. I'm your dad.
He's basically a wolf in the wilderness, and they're making a lot of noise.
So naturally, there's a brokenheartedness to it. At the same time, he's a complete reptile, so he can turn on a dime, you know? And that's the juicy stuff of life. That's what makes life go around, right? Nothing is simple. Nothing in this movie is what it seems to be.
A fisherman always sees another fisherman from afar. I think you ought to start calling me Gordon.